guys, it's Sarah and today is Booklist Thursday. This is a video series that I created with my friend Lisa over at Books and Smiles and my friend Lindsay from Lindsay's Little Library. I will have them both linked down below, so make sure you go and check them out. This week we are bringing you some recommendations for historical fiction, and I'm really excited about this one because I really want to see what Lindsay and Lisa are going to recommend and see if we have any similar, especially Lindsay because historical fiction is her favorite genre. So I've gotten a lot of recommendations from her in this area and I'm excited to see what else she's going to say so I can pick those up. She has not led me wrong yet. So, but I'm going to talk about my top 5 here. All right, the first one is the one I've read most recently, and that is Before We Were Yours by Lisa Wingate. This book I listened to on audio. The audio is great. I am going to be picking up a physical copy at some point though, because this book tore my heart out and stomped on it a little bit and then put it back in upside down. This book follows a orphanage in Tennessee in the early 1900s, and it is an orphanage that is seemingly on the outside an amazing organization and they do such wonderful things for children and they love these children and they're getting them to great homes and blah, 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 blah. Behind the scenes though, the woman who runs the orphanage is kidnapping children and she is selling them to celebrities or prominent political members of the time and doing it all legally, because she has a judge in her pocket. So she is taking these babies from these families. Sometimes it is from a hospital and the family is told that their infant has died, which obviously isn't true. And sometimes they are taken from dangerous situations. So there is that. But for the most part, she is stealing beautiful babies to sell to rich people who are willing to pay for them. Now, the thing about this orphanage too is that from the outside, and you know, the presentation is that these children are loved and cared for and blah blah blah. They are not. They are malnourished, they are abused, there's some sexual abuse going on, physical abuse, definitely emotional abuse for these children, and they were literally snatched away from their families. Now, the hardest thing about this book is that this is true. This all really happened. The characters in the book, as far as the children and kind of the main family that is portrayed in here, I believe is fiction, but the woman who runs the orphanage, her name is Georgia Tan. She was a real person and that's her real name and she really did this. And there is a judge that was a real person and really did this. So it's based on historical accuracy and, you know, obviously it's a fiction though, so some of the things were made up, but oh my gosh. It was crazy. Just knowing that this actually really happened was so heartbreaking and very fascinating. And I'm definitely interested now in reading some nonfiction about this woman and all that. So I'm kind of keeping my eye out for things like that. But the book itself was great and it was written really, really well. I really enjoyed it and I definitely recommend it. The next one I would like to recommend is Salt to the Sea by Ruta Sepetys. This again is based on historical facts and it follows a group of refugees during World War II and they're from different areas. So there's a Polish girl, there is a German boy, there is I believe a Lithuanian, and then there's also a German Nazi soldier, all in this book. So you get the perspective from all 4 of these different characters. And this follows a ship that was carrying refugees from, I believe, Germany. I want to say it was Germany. Like, it was a German ship and they were taking refugees, but it was actually attacked and sunk by a Russian missile. So that actually happened in history. And it was also covered up by the German government because the German government didn't want that on their record, or like, as in they didn't want that against them, or they didn't want anyone to know about it, but this killed almost 10,000 people. So very interesting. It was really good. It was, it's a young adult, so it reads really quickly and the chapters are really short, so it kind of goes really quickly. But it was fantastic. I loved every single second of it. It was my first Ruta Sepetys book and I now want to read everything that she's written so far and anything that she writes in the future because it was just so fascinating and the research that she had to do to go in this must have been extensive. But yeah, just really, really good. This next one is a book that I read recently, and it is now one of my all-time favorite books, and that is The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. And this follows two sisters in the middle of World War II, and they are living in Nazi-occupied France, and they are polar opposites. So we have one sister who has a family, a husband, a daughter. She stays at home. She takes care of her household. The other sister is single, very feminist, very, you know, power to the people and all that, and talks what she talks and doesn't care who gets hurt or who says what or who hears her or whatever, to a dangerous point where she puts people's lives in jeopardy. So you see these two sisters kind of navigating this war and what it has done to them both individually. They end up separating for a bit, and you see them each go in their own direction and play their own roles in what happens to women in this war and roles that women are playing in this war. And they were both very, very impactful in their own different ways, and it was so good. I did not want to put this down. It's a big book. It's over 500 pages, but I did not want to put this book down. It was fantastic. And it's heartbreaking, and things happened that were shocking to me, and just the way that people were treated back then. And then you kind of feel some sympathy for one of the German soldiers, which you should not be feeling, but you do. Like, I kind of liked him a lot, even though he was, you know, he wasn't the good guy. He wasn't supposed to be the good guy. And yeah, it was so good. So good. If you ever read any Kristen Hanna, this is the one to read for sure. I now am starting to collect Kristen Hanna, and I have a few of her books, and I can't wait to read more. I'm not expecting them to be as good as this one, but the second I read this, it instantly became one of my top 10 books of all time, and I will recommend it to anybody and everybody. All right, this next one is another one of my all-time favorites, and that is Water for Elephants by Sarah Gruen. This follows a circus in the 1920s, and it does follow the care and the things that are happening to the elephants in this circus. So we follow a young boy who ends up joining the circus. He runs away from home and joins the circus, and he really falls in love with the happenings of it and the lifestyle of it and everything. He ends up kind of falling for one of the acts, which is a woman who works with the elephants. She's actually the performer and rides on the elephants, and she is also married to the man who trains the elephants. However, he is awful and he abuses the animals. And so this boy is trying to correct that and, you know, get this guy out of here so that the animals can be cared for correctly and humanely. I've read this book twice. I do plan to read it again in the future. I absolutely love it. The writing was fantastic. Just the opening of this book was fantastic. And when I first read it, I really loved it. And then I wanted to read it again a couple years later just to remind myself of why. And just, you know, the first few pages, I went, this is why. This is why I love this book. And I loved it all over again. So this also has a movie adaptation with Robert Pattinson and Reese Witherspoon, and it was fantastic. The movie was really well done as well. But this is one of my favorite books of all time. And my last one is another one of my favorite books of all time, and that is Redeeming Love by Francine Rivers. And this book is set in the 1800s, and it follows a woman named Angel and a man named Michael. Angel has grown up around a lot of abuse and a lot of sexual abuse, and she finds herself as a prostitute in the 1800s, thinking that that's just what her life is going to be, and thinking that she has control over everything and she's perfectly fine the way she is. She can take care of herself. She ends up meeting Michael, who is just passing through this town one day, and when Michael sees her, he listens to a voice from God and says, "This is your wife." And he said, okay. And so he does everything he can to take her as his wife and to get her out of her situation so that she's safe, and to, you know, have her live with him on his ranch that he owns. And it's slow going. She does not want to go. She's very stubborn. She thinks he's crazy for listening to a voice in his head, what she considers a voice in his head. She doesn't really believe in God, but he does, and he's a believer and he's a follower and he listens. Eventually you see him question, you know, like, is this really my wife? Is this really what's supposed to be happening? Because it's not fun. And he's told yes. So it really is a story of unconditional love. Like, it really truly is. It's, you know, obedience and it's love, and you really see Michael fall in love with Angel, and then she in turn falls in love with him, but it does take a lot of time, and she doesn't accept him, you know, definitely right away, but even over time, it takes her a long time to accept what's happening. And that's just because of the way that she was brought up. She doesn't trust men at all. It was beautiful. It really, really was. This is one that I do plan to reread one day. I've only read it once, but when I was reading it, I was just devouring it. Like, not speed reading through it, but I was just absorbing it, and I took my time with it, and I loved it, and I appreciated it, and it was just the most beautiful love story I've ever read. It really is. And you really find yourself, you know, rooting for them, and then getting mad at her, and then you get mad at him a little bit, and just all the emotions. It was fantastic, and I absolutely loved it. All right, guys, that is it for my historical fiction recommendations. Those are my personal favorites that I have read. Please let me know down below what you guys have read in the historical fiction genre, and let me know some of your recommendations so I can check them out. Historical fiction is definitely a genre I want to get more into, for sure. So I have a little bit of a collection going on of some that I'm interested in, but any that you guys have that I can keep on my radar, please let me know down below. And go check out Lisa and Lindsay and see what they recommend, and I will be watching those as soon as possible as well, because I really want to see what they have to say. All right, I will talk to you guys again soon. Have a great day. Bye.